what the school should be looking at, is how to ensure the students are safe. And that's not what this sounds like. It sounds like trying to turn this into a court of law.
U.S. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is proposing controversial changes to how colleges handle reports of sexual misconduct. Some of the proposed changes include giving more protections to the accused student and allowing the students to cross-examine each other through a representative.
10 News reporter Stephanie Haynes joins us with more on this plan. Stephanie?
Robin and John, the Education Department says these changes will make the process more fair and straightforward, but some sexual assault advocates believe the changes will deter victims from coming forward.
When we're dealing with people who've been sexually assaulted, that's the most personal violation that occurs.
Amy Dilworth is the executive director of the Knoxville Family Justice Center and often works with victims of sexual assault. It's a challenge that grips colleges across the country, and that's why U.S. Department of Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is proposing changes to how colleges deal with it. Some of the changes include due process for the accused student and the ability for students to cross-examine each other through what the department calls advisors. Colleges were anticipating this proposal.
So I think that we've already been being very critical of our processes and our policies with the eye on regulations could be changing.
Jessica Bohr is the Title IX coordinator at Maryville College. She says her team meets often to review and improve policies and says there are elements that are clear or confusing about any Title IX law, but the bottom line is safety of students.
I'm here for them. While I'm not necessarily partial to a student or the school or an individual, I'm partial to a fair and equitable process.
But Dilworth says the proposals could deter victims from coming forward.
We're not talking about it did or didn't happen. We're talking about regardless of whether or not it happened, someone doesn't feel safe, and we need to make sure that person does feel safe.
Now, UT said in a statement, the University of Tennessee's Title IX commitment to prevention and properly addressing allegations is steadfast. We will review the draft regulations carefully to see how any proposed changes may impact our current policies and procedures. That's from Ashley Blamey, their Title IX coordinator. Now, there's a 60-day comment period for the proposal, and you can find a link at WBIR.com. Robin and John.
Stephanie, thank you.
Right now, all 9